On these multi-step equations, this time you guys are going to see parentheses all throughout the problem. Typically, you might see just one set on one side of the equation. Eventually, don't be surprised if you have a set of parentheses on the right and a set of parentheses on the left side. You may have to distribute on both sides, but anytime you guys have parentheses, the very first step of the problem is to use distributive property to get rid of those parentheses. Everything after that is what we did yesterday. So once we distribute, combine like terms, get the variable by itself, okay? So it's just one extra step on top of what we did yesterday and on the do now today. Okay, so I think instead of going through this example, I'm just going to use number 5 as the example for all of us. And I'll probably do what we did yesterday, kind of work through 5, 6, and 7 together. And then I'll have you guys try number 8 without me, and then we'll compare them, okay? So for problem number 5, if you take a look at the left-hand side, when you just have a single constant there, just bring it down. We need to focus on the right side. So on the right-hand side, I have this negative 2x plus 2, but then attached to that 2 is this set of parentheses. When you have a number next to a set of parentheses, that means multiply. So to distribute, you are multiplying the 2 by whatever is on the inside of the parentheses. Okay, well, hang on a second. So this negative 2x is just hanging out by itself. You want to just bring that down. And then once you bring that down, you need to pay attention to what kind of 2 this is. Because if that says plus, it's a positive. If it says minus, it's a negative. And you have to be careful with your signs. Those signs make all the difference in these problems. Okay, so we have 2 times 6x, which Colton already said is 12x. And then when you take a positive 2 times a negative 4, you get a negative 8. So you just put minus 8. Okay? How does everybody feel about that first step? Is that okay? Because now that that first step's out of the way, it's exactly what we've been doing. So if you look at the right side, is there anything that I can put together? Add the x terms, right? So combine these two. I'm going to bring down that negative 88. And then on the right side, a negative 2 plus 12. You guys cannot type letters into the calculator, but if you're trying to combine these, you can still type in the numbers. You can do negative 2 plus 12. It's going to tell you 10. Just don't forget to write the x with it. You have to bring that with it the whole time. And then this minus 8 just comes down. Yep. So now we're going to go ahead and take this constant of the minus 8, and since we're crossing the line, we're going to add it. You're going to do the opposite. So if you take negative 88 plus 8, I would much rather you guys type that into your calculator than try to do it in your head. Then negative 88 plus 8.
That's just 80.
Yeah, it's negative 80.
And then you divide it by 10. And
Who just said but? We're yeah, you were just ahead of me. Okay, so we have a negative 80 on this side, a positive 10x on this side, so then our last step is to finish with that division. Divide by positive 10. My whole point is, when you guys do these problems, I tried to explain this yesterday. I would love it if all of you knew the rules of addition for positives and negatives. But when you guys get to Algebra 1, and especially in Algebra 2, the process of solving these is way more important to me. So if you're able to tell me, well, I know I'm supposed to add 8 because I'm moving it to the other side, That's what's important, not, well, I know negative 88 plus 8 off the top of my head. Like, I don't care. Type it into a calculator, double check yourself. I'd much rather you guys type it into a calculator, making sure you put the right number on your paper, so that way you get it right. Once you do that division, you have a negative 8. So you can either write that as x equals negative 8 or negative 8 equals x. All right, number 6. Number 6 is going to be a little bit harder, because if you look over on that right side, you see all kinds of like minus signs. So we've got lots of negatives to deal with. Okay, so now we have this negative 8 hanging out by itself. Just bring it down. And then once you hit the minus 5, that's the number that's attached to the parentheses. So this is where we're going to start distributing. And when you do your multiplication, like I said, you've got to be real careful, because not only do you have negatives in here, but this is a negative 5 that you're multiplying by. So when you type this in, you would type in negative 5 times negative 6. And just make sure that when you guys do that, you get a positive 30. Good? So if it's a positive 30, you want to put plus 30, and then, of course, don't forget the letter X with it. If you accidentally leave that letter off, you're going to combine the wrong stuff. So you need to make sure you put that letter with it. And then negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25. So you just put plus 25. So that's the new step. That's the new step that we're learning today. So now we go back to everything that we were doing yesterday. We're going to look at this. I mean, you're supposed to look at both sides, but if this is just a single number, there's nothing happening over here just yet. But on the right-hand side, we've got, what, this negative 8 plus 25 that we can put together. And I don't care if you guys do that first or last. I like to always have my variable term first. So, you know, I just went ahead and put the 30x there just because it's not combining with anything. What is a negative 8 plus 25? Okay, positive 17. So you put plus 17. And then the 17 is the number we need to move. So how do you move a plus 17? Yep. So 30x equals, and then this is 150. And then finish with your division. Mm-hmm.
You can do this a different way too, right?
Okay, so you guys move your numbers separately, right?
I move my constants.
Yeah, so you did plus 8 and then minus 25. So you did yours in 2 steps. I combined it and then moved it once. So I mean, like, you're doing 2 steps, I'm doing 2 steps, it doesn't really matter. I just always put mine together, then move it. But you can do it that way too. I teach it this way, but some people have learned it a different way. That's fine. As long as you get an answer of x equals 5, then it's obvious that you know what you're doing. Your steps don't always have to match mine. All right, let's do 7, excuse me, and then I'll have you guys do number 8 without me. All right, so number 7, the negative 121 just gets brought down. And then on the right-hand side, I always like to explain this because I always worry that some of you guys are going to actually do this first, that you're going to try to do negative 1 plus 5 and put those together, and you can't. Okay, so that 5 is attached to the parentheses, so you have to make sure. Order of operations always says you have to multiply before you add. So you want to make sure you do that multiplication, so you leave that -1 alone for now.
So basically it's positive 5 plus 3?
Positive 5 times 3, yep. So we're doing 5 times 3m, 15m, and since it's positive, put a plus sign there. You always have to have a symbol. And then 5 times a -6, -30. Okay, then what two numbers do I put together? So -1 and -30 on the right-hand side can be combined. So I'm going to leave the 15m alone, and what do those two make? They're both negative. See?
Still positive?
Nope.
Wait, what?
-1 minus 30.
Oh, we're on this.
Hey guys, if I have one negative and 30 more negatives, I have a total of how many negatives? -31.
I was confused earlier.
Yeah, when you guys put two negative numbers together, it's the same as putting two positives together, it's just a negative answer. So if they're both negative, you just add them and keep it negative. So 31 negatives. Just like if this was positive and that was positive, you guys would have told me positive 31. Or hey, type it into a calculator. Then you'll get it right, as long as you don't put any extra symbols in there. Okay, so how do I move the -31? Add 31? Yeah, okay, so that's where you're, yep, -90. Yeah, so double check. You know, when I only have, when, you know, 3 or 4 people are the ones shouting out the answers, they're not going to be doing your work for you. So please make sure that you guys are able to type this in, and this is the number that appears on your calculator. Some people like to put extra symbols in here, and that's the reason I circle this, because I'm like, whatever's in that circle, that is the only stuff that gets typed into the calculator. Okay, so we have -121 plus 31 is -90, and then we can finish off with the division step. So if you have -90 divided by 15, what do you get? -6. And again, your final answer, it does not matter if you flip it around, because flipping around an equal sign is still an equal sign. Did you on number 8? It probably shouldn't be. Okay, so do me a favor, go ahead, and if you have not already tried number 8 on your own, could you guys go ahead and at least attempt it? Try to get through this part right here. You're multiplying 6 by 5x and 6 by -3 and leaving that 7x alone. So just try to get it started, see how far you can go with that, and then I'm going to freeze the screen just so you guys can't see. Try it on your own, then I'll go through it with you in just a couple minutes. Then we'll be ready for the last type. Okay, I don't care how far you've made it, just double check. Make sure right here you have this, that it was 7x plus 30x minus 18. If you got that, then you distributed right, okay? And then you want to put these two together. So you want to put your two x terms together. That one's pretty straightforward because everything's positive. So you're just doing 7 plus 30, giving you a total of 37x. And then if you take a look at this side, since this is the side with the letter, go to the constant, that minus 18, that's the number you all want to move. How do you move minus 18? Add 18 to the left and the right. No. One's negative and one's positive. That's why. That's where you messed up. That's why you're probably getting a decimal. This is negative 92 plus 18. Negative 74. And then divide by 37. X equals negative 2. Yeah. I don't really know why number 9's on there. It's an inequality. I assume the reason they threw that on there is because eventually these problems that we were just solving, remember how I just said that at the end, if you take this answer and you flip it around, it's not a big deal because an equal sign flipped around is still an equal sign. Eventually, you guys are going to have a problem just like this, but instead of an equal sign, it might be a less than symbol. Now, if you have a less than symbol, and at the very end, you decide to flip that around, does a less than symbol still stay a less than symbol when you flip it? No, it becomes a greater than symbol. So that's why I think they just kind of threw this on here. I'm not really concerned about number 9 right now because it doesn't go along with what we're doing. So we're just going to skip it. I will eventually teach you a whole lesson over inequalities. So let's not worry about this right now. Let's just go to solving more multi-step equations. So we have done, what was that? 4 steps? Distribute, combine, add or subtract, divide. So you guys yesterday did at most 3 steps. Today, so far, we've done at most 4 steps. And then we get to the type where there are variables on both sides. You can have up to 5 steps. Okay, and they don't get any longer than that. This is about as long as they'll ever get. Okay, so the only difference here is we're still going to start off by, if you see any kind of parentheses, we still have to distribute first. If there are like terms, I'm going to go ahead and combine them. And this time you might have like terms on the left that you can combine, and you might have some on the right that you can combine. Okay, so we're still going to look at both sides to see if we can do that. And then we're still going to be moving things from one side to the other. But since there are letters on both sides, we're going to be moving a variable from one side to the other. And then we'll move our constant from one side to the other. So you'll have an extra step in there when we go to move our variable from one side to the other. Then at the end, it's typically divide. Okay? All right, so let's do number 10. Let's walk through that one together. What did you just say? Oh, yeah, just bring down everything on the left side. Yeah, so on the left side, there aren't any parentheses. So right now, all we did was just bring down the stuff that's on the left. But on the right-hand side, this is where we have our parentheses. So we're going to have to distribute. And look up at the board, please. This 8 does not distribute with this plus 6 all the way at the end. That 6 is not in parentheses. So you just multiply it by these two. 8 times -1 is -8. And 8 times -6x, -48, just don't forget the x with it. And then this plus 6 hanging out by itself there at the end. All right, so now comes the fun part. After we distribute, I combine like terms. So I look over here, I can't put those two together. So I just bring them down again. Those two still are not really doing much but hanging out. But on this side, I have a -8 and a plus 6. I have two constants that I can go ahead and just put together and make one number out of. So I'm going to leave this -48x alone. What is a -8 plus 6? -2. Okay, so if you guys look at the left side, I have a constant and I have a variable. And if you look at the right side, I have a constant and I have a variable. Normally, you guys are used to seeing this. Like, if that 48x weren't there, you're used to seeing this. So you guys would take the 40 and you'd move it to the other side. Okay, but now that we have a letter over here, I can just remember, this is totally a matter of preference. I can remember like a pre-algebra teacher telling me when I was a student many years ago that she always told us to take the variable that was on the right and move it to the left side. And I always did that first. So I am very much a creature of habit, and so I still do that to this day. I will always take whatever variable is over here on the right, and I'm going to move it to the left side. Is that the only way for this to be done? Absolutely not. There's actually 4 ways you guys could do this problem. Somebody in here could move this 40 over here first. Somebody could move this 6x over. Somebody could do it my way and move the 48x, and somebody could take this -2 and move it over to the left. You could seriously do this 4 different ways, and all of us would still get the same answer. It's nice about math, but then it's also a bad thing because some people, if you try to learn too many different ways of doing things, you get even more confused. So I'm going to stick with my method, but if you already feel comfortable with this and you did it a different way than me, just check your final answer, okay? So if I want to move this -48x this way, what would I do? I'd add it because it's crossing the line, right? It's going to the other side, and when you do that, you want to make sure you always do the opposite. Now notice where I put it. Notice how I put it under the -6x instead of putting it under the 40. Why did I do that?
Because you don't have an X.
Because this one doesn't have the x. This is the one it's going to pair up with. Yeah, you're right. So I would just bring this 40 straight down. And then this is what you would want to type into the calculator. -6 plus 48. You should say 42. Positive 42x. And then on the right side, all we have left is the -2. So we have distributed, step 1, combine like terms, step 2. Step 3, I moved my variable to the left. What's step 4 going to be? Move the constant. So I'm going to move the 40. Yep. Uh-huh. And if this is a positive 40, how do we move it? Pair it with a negative or subtract it, however you want to say it. Those cancel. So I have 42x on the left equals, and then I heard a -42 on the right. Yeah. Finish with division. So we're going to divide by 42. And x equals -1. You definitely need quite a bit of space to work these out just because, like I said, you can have 5 steps per problem. And not all of them will work out to be 5 steps. When I say multi-step, it can vary. It can be anywhere from 2 to 5. Just depends on how the problem was set up. Now there are some teachers who teach, when I did this step right here, they kind of teach it like moving the x this way and they do the constant this way. So some people will have done both of them in this one step. I don't like doing that. So I feel like if you guys try to do 2 things at once, you make mistakes. And some of you end up moving everything to one side. And that's not how it goes. Letters need to be on one side and the numbers need to be on the other side. Okay? Are we okay? Ish. Okay. Well, number 11. Does anything need to be done on the left side? Nope. Not yet anyway. What do you think about the right side? What needs to be done? Bring the 3m down and then distribute the 5. When she gets back. 5 times -4? -20, and 5 times -6m? -30m. Yeah, I heard different things. I heard you guys say them. I just wanted everybody to hear it at the same time. Okay, so distributive property is done. So then the next thing I'm going to look for is I'm going to look at each side and see if there's anything I can put together. Well, obviously these two you can't, so those just stay the same. But on this side, we've got a 3m and a -30m. So if you type it in, you're typing in 3 minus 30. Which is negative 27 m. And then bring down the -20. All right. So now when you look at it, we've got, hang on, let me put CLT. So we distributed, we combined. Now it's time to just move things from side to side. So I've got a variable and a constant, a variable and a constant. So I like my variable moved this way. So add 27m. I do that because most of you guys, when you write your answers, you always put the letter on the left anyway. Most of you guys read your answers as m equals. So it just makes sense to me to go ahead and put it on that side. Can somebody get that, please? All right, bring down the -20. And what is 6 plus 27? 33. M. Don't forget the plus sign in front of it. Then on the right side, these two canceled out, so all we have left over here is our -20. Okay, so then what number do I have to move to the right? I have to move this one, right? This -20, so we're going to add 20 to both sides. What'd you say? Okay, so 33m comes down, equal sign comes down, and over here, sure, they're going to cancel each other out, but you have to put a number there, so it's 0. And anytime you take 0 and divide it by any number, it's always an answer of 0. What you cannot do is you cannot leave your answer right here. You cannot leave it as 33m equals 0 because you have to have m by itself. So just do that division step. The answer is 0. For some reason, so many students think that if they get an answer of 0, they have done something wrong. I don't know why you think that, but that is not the case. 0 is a number, and it's a very important number for our number line. Separates positives and negatives. So if you get a 0, it's fine. Okay? Questions before we do these last two? Okay, so what did you say? Okay. Sure. Just because you said so. On the left side of number 12, I'm going to bring down my negative 5a. And then you've got that 4 that needs to be distributed. Okay, so if you just have a letter, a number times a letter just attaches them. So 4 times a is 4a. And then 4 times negative 6, negative 24. Good. Right side, negative 16 plus. Now because that letter is by itself, I'm going to go ahead and stick a 1 in front of it, just because eventually aren't we going to move it anyway? And you always should have a number there if you know that you're going to move it, just so you know what you're dealing with. No. Well, that's not what I do. My next step is I'm going to combine these two. So negative 5 plus 4 is negative 1a. And I'm just going to bring everything else down for now. And then we'll start moving stuff from side to side. Okay, so what do you guys want to move? You can. That's not what I'm going to do, but you can. I would move this one, just because, again, I like to always move the variable first, and I like to always move it to the left. So if I'm getting rid of a plus 1, I subtract 1a. So on the left, you have a negative 1 and another negative 1, making negative 2a. And then just bring the rest of it down. So negative 2a minus 24 equals negative 16. So then my next step, since I just moved my variable to the left, now it's time to move the constant to the right. So I'm going to get rid of the minus 24 by adding it. So negative 16 plus 24, 8. And then you guys can finish with your division. Negative 4? Is that what you said? A equals negative 4. I had something really important I was going to say, and I can't remember what it was.
Yeah. I mean,
Maybe I'll think about it. Well, I'd like you guys to try number 13. Now that we just did those three together. Just try to do as much as you can. I'll at least do this part where I show I'm going to bring down the left side, bring down the 5v, but then you guys need to finish that. You need to do the distributive step and then see how far you guys can get with that before I put the answer on there.
wait, would this one be like combined?
So you still want to distribute. You still want to do the -6 times 1 and -6 times v. Oh yeah, attach them, you mean? Mm-hmm. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I was going to say, I know that some of you have been doing these kinds of problems for a while because some of you were in this class last term or in my pre-algebra class, which we did them in there too. But every single little thing that I do up here, like the arrows that I draw to show you what's coming straight down, the circles that I put around everything, even like the little bracket that I did right here showing you that we're combining those two terms, those are things that, I mean, obviously I don't need to do them because I've been doing this stuff forever, but I do that so that way those of you who like haven't done this in a while, or if you struggle with this, you might want to do stuff like that on your own paper, because the more you do that, the easier it'll get. The more you practice them and the more little things you do like that as reminders for your steps, it'll get easier. And I don't think there's a quiz this week. Don't hold me to that. I can't remember. But if you're struggling by Thursday with a lot of this stuff, most of this week we're doing everything together. So if you're still struggling by Thursday, come in on Friday for some extra like one-on-one help, 10 to 12. Okay, I'm only going to show you that. I'm just going to put that step up there real quick so you guys can make sure you had it right. So you had -6 times 1 is -6, and -6 times v is -6v. In this next step, you can put the 5v and the -6v together. So what's 5 minus 6? -1v. And then the -6 would just come down. So I'm going to pause it there. Now you've got a constant and a variable on each side. So move your variable to the left and then move your constant to the right. And then finish with your division. So you've got 3 more steps to go. What did you do? Add the 1v. Okay, so this comes down. We're going to put these two together. These two will cancel, and this will come down. Okay, so -13 drops down. Then if you have a -2 plus 1, what is that? -1v or -v. And then over here we have a -6. Yeah, anytime I put ones in front of my letters, technically they're not needed. Like technically you don't have to. I like to have it there just because that's the number I'm going to divide by at the end, so that's the only reason I put it there. So now that we moved V to the left, we got to move this one. Add 13. So negative 1V equals, and then you said positive 7? Yep. So then my last step would be divide by the negative 1. So you should get V equals negative 7 as your final answer. Yep, it is yours to keep.